Around this time, Wuornos met Tyree Moore, a hotel maid, at a Daytona gay bar. They moved in together, and Wuornos supported them with her prostitution earnings. On the 4th of July 1987, Daytona Beach police detained Wuornos and Moore at a bar for questioning regarding an incident in which they were accused of assault and battery with a beer bottle. On the 12th of March 1988, Wuornos accused a Daytona Beach bus driver of assault. She claimed that he pushed her off the bus following a confrontation. Moore was listed as a witness to the incident. Justice system. Apprehension and sentencing. On the 4th of July 1990, Wuornos and Moore abandoned Peter Siems's car after they were involved in an accident. Witnesses who had seen the women driving the victims' cars provided police with their names and descriptions, resulting in a media campaign to locate them. Police also found some of the victims' belongings in pawnshops and retrieved fingerprints matching those found in the victims' cars. Wuornos had a criminal justice record in Florida, and her fingerprints were on file. On 9th of January 1991, Wuornos was arrested on an outstanding warrant at the Last Resort, a biker bar in Volusia County. Police located Moore the next day in Scranton, Pennsylvania. She agreed to elicit a confession from Wuornos in exchange for prosecutorial immunity. Moore returned with police to Florida, where she was put up in a motel. Under police guidance, Moore made numerous telephone calls to Wuornos, pleading for help in clearing her name. 3 days later, on the 16th of January 1991, Wuornos confessed to the murders. She claimed the men had tried to rape her and she killed them in self-defense. On the 14th of January 1992, Wuornos went to trial for the murder of Richard Mallory. Prior bad acts are normally inadmissible in criminal trials, but under Florida's Williams rule, the prosecution was allowed to introduce evidence related to her other crimes to show a pattern of illegal activity. On the 27th of January 1992, Wuornos was convicted of Richard Mallory's murder with help from Moore's testimony. At her sentencing, psychiatrists for the defense testified that Wuornos was mentally unstable and had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. 4 days later, she was sentenced to death. On the 31st of March 1992, Wuornos pleaded no contest to the murders of Dick Humphreys, Troy Burris, and David Spears, saying she wanted to get right with God. In her statement to the court, she stated, "I wanted to confess to you that Richard Mallory did violently rape me as I've told you, but these others did not. They only began to start to." On the 15th of May 1992, Wuornos was given 3 more death sentences. In June 1992, Wuornos pleaded guilty to the murder of Charles Carskadden. In November 1992, she received her 5th death sentence. The defense made efforts during the trial to introduce evidence that Mallory had been tried for intent to commit rape in Maryland and that he had been committed to a maximum security correctional facility in Maryland that provided remediation to sexual offenders. Records obtained from that institution reflected that, from 1958 to 1962, Mallory was committed for treatment and observation resulting from a criminal charge of assault with intent to rape and received an overall 8 years of treatment from the facility. In 1961, it was observed of Mr. Mallory that he possessed strong sociopathic trends. The judge refused to allow this to be admitted in court as evidence and denied Wuornos' request for a retrial. In February 1993, Wuornos pleaded guilty to the murder of Walter Geno Antonio and was sentenced to death again. No charges were brought against her for the murder of Peter Siems, as his body was never found. In all, she received 6 death sentences. Wuornos told several inconsistent stories about the killings. She claimed initially that all 7 men had raped her while she was working as a prostitute, but later recanted the claim of self-defense. During an interview with filmmaker Nick Broomfield, when she thought the cameras were off, she told him that it was, in fact, self-defense, but she could not stand being on death row, where she had been for 12 years at that point, and wanted to die. Execution. Wuornos' appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was denied in 1996. In 2001, she announced that she would not issue any further appeals against her death sentence. She petitioned the Florida Supreme Court for the right to fire her legal counsel and stop all appeals, saying, "I killed those men, robbed them as cold as ice. And I'd do it again, too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything, because I'd kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I am so sick of hearing this shit's crazy stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm trying to tell the truth. I'm one who seriously hates human life and would kill again. A defense attorney argued that she was in no state for them to honor such a request. Florida Governor Jeb Bush instructed 3 psychiatrists to give Wuornos a 15-minute interview. The test for competency requires the psychiatrist S to be convinced that the condemned person understands that she will die and for which crime S she is being executed. All 3 judged her mentally fit to be executed. Wuornos later started accusing the prison matrons of abusing her. She accused them of tainting her food, spitting on it, serving her potatoes cooked in dirt, and her food arriving with urine. She also claimed overhearing conversations about trying to get me so pushed over the brink by them I'd wind up committing suicide before the execution and wishing to rape me before execution. She also complained of strip searches, being handcuffed so tightly that her wrists bruised any time she left her cell, door kicking, frequent window checks by matrons, low water pressure, mildew on her mattress and catcalling, in distaste and a pure hatred towards me. Wuornos threatened to boycott showers and food trays when specific officers were on duty. In the meantime, my stomach's growling away and I'm taking showers through the sink of my cell. Her attorney stated that Ms. Wuornos really just wants to have proper treatment, humane treatment until the day she's executed, and if the allegations don't have any truth to them, she's clearly delusional. She believes what she's written. During the final stages of the appeal process, she gave a series of interviews to Broomfield. In her final interview shortly before her execution, she claimed that her mind was being controlled by sonic pressure to make her appear crazy and described her impending death as being taken away by angels on a spaceship. Wuornos said to Broomfield, "You sabotaged my society, and the cops, and the system. A raped woman got executed, and was used for books and movies and shit." Her final words in the on-camera interview were, "Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass." Broomfield later met Don Botkins, a childhood friend of Wuornos, who told him, "She's sorry, Nick, she didn't give you the finger. She gave the media the finger, and then the attorneys the finger. And she knew if she said much more, it could make a difference on her execution tomorrow, so she just decided not to." Wuornos was brought into the death chamber on October 9, 2002. She had had KFC as her last meal and was given a $20 budget. Her last words before the execution were, "Yes, I would just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back, like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6, like the movie. Big mothership and all, I'll be back, I'll be back." At 9:47 a.m. EDT, Aileen Wuornos died. She was the 10th woman in the United States to be executed since the Supreme Court lifted the ban on capital punishment in 1976, and the 2nd woman ever executed in Florida. After death. After her execution, Wuornos' body was cremated. Her ashes were taken by Don Botkins, a childhood friend, to her native Michigan and spread beneath a tree. She requested that Natalie Merchant's song, "Carnival," be played at her funeral. Natalie Merchant commented on this when asked why her song was played during the credits of the documentary Aileen, Life and Death of a Serial Killer. When director Nick Broomfield sent a working edit of the film, I was so disturbed by the subject matter that I couldn't even watch it. Aileen Wuornos led a torturing life that is beyond my worst nightmares. It wasn't until I was told that Aileen spent many hours listening to my album Tiger Lily while on death row and requested "Carnival" be played at her funeral that I gave permission for the use of the song. It's very odd to think of the places my music can go once it leaves my hands. If it gave her some solace, I have to be grateful. Natalie Merchant. Broomfield later stated, "I think this anger developed inside her, and she was working as a prostitute. I think she had a lot of awful encounters on the roads, and I think this anger just spilled out from inside her, and finally exploded into incredible violence. That was her way of surviving. I think Aileen really believed that she had killed in self-defense. I think someone who's deeply psychotic can really tell the difference between something that is life-threatening and something that is a minor disagreement, that you could say something that she didn't agree with. She would get into a screaming black temper about it. And I think that's what had caused these things to happen. And at the same time, when she wasn't in those extreme moods, there was an incredible humanity to her." Legacy. Books. FBI profiler Robert K. Ressler mentioned Wuornos only briefly in his autobiographical history of his 20 years with the FBI. Writing in 1992, he said he often does not discuss female serial killers because they tend to kill in sprees instead of in a sequential fashion. He noted Wuornos as the sole exception. wrestler, who coined the phrase serial killer to describe murderers seeking personal gratification, does not apply it to women killing in postpartum psychosis or to any murderer acting solely for financial gain, such as women who have killed a series of boarders or spouses. In 2002, journalist Sue Russell wrote a book about Wuornos called Lethal Intent. Film. The theatrical film Monster, 2003, starred Charlize Theron and Christina Ricci. It tells Wuornos' story from childhood until her first murder conviction. The film earned Theron the 2003 Academy Award for Best Actress for her performance as Aileen Wuornos. The TV movie Overkill, the Aileen Wuornos story, 1992, starred Jean Smart. Opera. An operatic adaptation of Wuornos' life events premiered at San Francisco's Yerba Buena Center for the Arts on June 22, 2001. Entitled Wuornos, the opera was written by composer-librettist Carla Lucero, conducted by Mary Chun, and produced by the John Sims Center for the Performing Arts. The singer Jewel wrote a song about Aileen called Nicotine Love.